Hello. Yeah, so hello everyone. Thank you for the lovely introductions in anthropology. So today, as Jen said, I'm going to be leading us in mono printing for painters. I'm gonna start by making sure everyone has their equipment first. I mean, I'm a painter and I love printing, and mono printing and monotyping is just the best printing for if you don't want to be too accurate and you want to have a decent amount of fun and make really beautiful images. So I hope everyone will be able to get something out of it today. So first of all, I have on my beautiful table all the equipment that I was asked everyone to bring. So I've got A4 paper. Fortunately, this is one of the occasions where the cheaper, the better. Some nice A4 printer paper is amazing. You get really good prints from it. I have my art roller and I have my palette here. I have my paints. So I am using actual etching ink. However, you're perfectly fine to use acrylic or any other oil-based ink. Because I have oil-based ink today, I also have a little bit of eco-friendly alternative to white spirit to make sure I can clean stuff up well. If you're using water-based, make sure that you just have some soapy water so you can wipe up stuff after yourself. I've also got a massive, rolling pin, which is how I'll be doing my transfer today. I have paintbrushes. So yeah, got some paintbrushes here. Yeah, and paintbrushes and some other bits of paper. I also have, for myself and for you, with regards to prompts and things, I have some photos and some drawings, just as like little ideas and things, and some pictures to kind of just help me think about what I want to make today, the kind of imagery I want to use today. So I'll let everyone get all their stuff together, and I will explain what I've done here. So while everyone's getting their materials together, today, oh, actually, one second, let me show you the lovely examples I made earlier. Here we go. So while I was planning the workshop, I had some really good fun making some examples. So these are mono prints, monotypes that I made using one color. I was sort of thinking about the theme of the beach from a family snapshot that I showed you a second ago. I also made some slightly more abstract ones, some really, some waves and some, more block color. So it's really interesting to note. So for the block color, that was made using the roller, where you get a more even distribution. For the slightly more like wavy textured bits, I've used paintbrushes. So, you can really play around with the mark making and the textures that you come up with. And with this one, I sort of did a secondary print. So it comes up very light, but I sort of used a circle to make sort of like a beach ball and to make a hole for it. And on this side, you've got a really nice texture, so you can kind of use some offcuts as well. So yeah, so that's the kind of thing. And then these are examples of the other method, which is basically the addition method, where you will be adding paint on, just painting like a normal painting, and then you'll just make a monotype from it. And even though it's a one-off, you can sometimes get some very nice things that happen when you do a second faint copy. So, something to play around with later on today. Okay, so my table is actually Perspex, sorry. So that's something I should note. People will have their Perspex or their bit of something shiny so that they can do their mono printing. My table is actually made out of Perspex, so I'll be working directly on the table. So for the first bit, like I said, I've marked up a spot on the table, sort of this size, which just allows me to make sure that, I keep this nice block here while we're doing the printing. I'm going to start with ultramarine blue. So that's my my color of choice. I'm going to put it on my palette, which is over here. And you just need to put a little bit on, really, most of the time. In fact, let me put it straight on here. Go on. It's exciting. Okay. And I'm just going to roll through this, try and get an even spread. So as I said, when I was looking at doing this yesterday, I sort of thought about a theme. So for me, one of my favorite themes at the moment is like, you know, outdoors, leisure, holidays, and really like, you know, things that we haven't really been doing for the last 18 months. So yeah, so I've gone with blue, and I think I'm gonna probably stick to the same theme. So you can really decide how abstract or how representational you want to make it. As a figurative painter, you know, as you saw from my examples, I've sort of made it more representational. So you just want to make sure you've got an even amount all over the roller as you go back and forth. The longer strokes, the better. And I'm just going to start here. Fortunately, you know, you don't have to be super neat, but you can just roll it out onto here. There we go. And when you're using a paintbrush, fortunately, you don't have to be too worried about how thick it is or how thick it isn't, but you're trying to get something quite even. Need some more paint there.
And Sikelela, you're actually rolling straight onto your table because that's Perspex, but on our material list, we had a sheet of acetate.
So acetate, sorry, yeah, this is acetate, sorry, Perspex acetate. Yeah, so on the actual, so on the actual sheet, you will be rolling onto your acetate. So it may be a plate like this, so therefore you won't have to mark off where you've got it necessarily, whereas on mine, because it's the whole table, I've marked off where my little line is. So yeah, so you'll be rolling this lovely paint onto your acetate. And yeah, so that's, yeah, sorry, good point. For those of you whose table is not made entirely of acetate slash Perspex, you can, yeah, make sure. Okay. So, yeah.
And we've just had a question come through, Sikelela. If people don't have access to kind of acetate or an acetate sheet or any Perspex, do you have any kind of alternatives that they could use?
Yeah, you know those pockets that you use to put paper in? You know the clear pockets that you put like A4 paper in and stuff? I use those sometimes. I mean, depending on how flat you can get it. I mean, anything that's easy to take off. Some people use like metal. Also, if you have a picture frame and you have the inside of it, then you can use, you know, the glass part or the plastic part of the picture frame. That will work just as well. And I have these like little plastic sleeves, which I sometimes use. That you can get like just from normal paper shops and things. Yeah, so you can use like anything like a little plastic sheet sleeve, and you can literally paint on top of that, and it will come out lovely. So yeah, in the same way that I use a rolling pin to take the. I only have one roller, and I'll use a rolling pin to take it off, but often people will have a dirty and a clean rolling roller. That's like the best way to do it if you have it. But if you don't, you can use lots of household stuff to make printing. That's the good thing about it. Okay, so we've covered our whole area. And I think the first thing is like, the first method is all about taking away things. So I don't know, maybe we can think about kind of let's make a beach scene. Let's make a rather abstracted beach scene, similar to the one yesterday. So I've also got some Q-tips, which are quite good for taking stuff away. And, you know, the things that you use to clean up your rags and things are very good to take some material away. So I'm going to just start and maybe make a nice little horizon line. And the reason you use a roller in the first place is just so you can get a really, really nice, even kind of, coverage, which you don't tend to get with a paintbrush. A paintbrush, you get all the textures and all the marks in, which can be really exciting for me personally, but I understand for, it can also be really good to start somewhere really smooth, especially if you want to make something a bit more abstracted. So I'm just making kind of a faux skyline and, using the Q-tip, we can make some waves.
Just to let everyone know that there will be a recorded version of this workshop available on our YouTube channel by this evening. Sikelela, we've had a question come through. Could you please just repeat the name of the eco-friendly white spirit that you're using?
Yes, it's called Zest It. So yeah, so it's really good. I mean, there are a number of them, but Zest It is the brand that I use, and it's really good because, especially if you've got young people around, obviously you can use water-based paint, but if you've got young people around, providing that they don't ingest it, it's pretty good for breathing and things. So we can just do this. And as I was saying earlier, you can literally have a stencil. So one of the things you can do is, just using a little bit of paper, I can, make a nice beach ball for this particular lovely scene. Okay. So I'm just going to put that in here. So there's still quite a lot of paint on this, which is why it's really good for a secondary print. So I'm going to put this around here. This is going to be our first one, and it's going to be a bit messy, but I just put it into here. And then, as you can see, it's picking up, and then you roll over the paper, just let it sit on the thing, let it catch a bit to the actual surface, because if you roll too fast, then it starts to move around and you might lose a bit of some of the interesting things you have going on. So just rolling back and forth. You can also rub with a rag, or you can rub with one of these tools, just to see that, so make sure you can get up as much as you can from the image. Okay. So from here, let's remove this. And here we've ended up with something a little bit messy, a little bit textured. And that's just like our first print. So from this, we've used quite a bit more paint than I used previously. And here, where you've got your stenciled bit, it's basically taken out that part. So you can remove this from the surface. But you've also ended up with a really nice stenciled piece there, which you can use as a secondary bit of collage. One of the things to make it immediately look a bit more professional and nice is if you make a frame. So here is one that I made earlier. This is a little frame, which is basically the size of your acetate. So it means that by putting this frame on top and then putting the paper on top, you don't end up picking up anything outside the box, and it makes it look a bit more professional, and it's really good if you want to then transfer it onto something else. So what I used was just some paper, and I put it in half and used my scissors to cut the same size as this. So, you may want to get together a little bit of a frame just to make it a bit neater. So what you can do is you can also roll over a second time. Sometimes the second print comes out better, in my personal opinion, or in my what I found previously. So what I think might be nice is to go back into this ball and make it a little bit more interesting. Make it a little bit stripy. And make the sea a little bit more textured, or kind of make the sand a bit textured. You can get quite a lot of nice marks just by going across it. Obviously, you know, you can put your thumbs in and make it go through that way.
And what other tools could people use, Sikelela, as kind of to create textures, different marks?
Well, I have some, yeah, you can literally use stencils. You can use paper as stencils, such as I did earlier, or you can use some leaves and some string, sponge to take some things away. So, you know, like lots of, pretty much anything you have in your household is really, really good. Some people make stencils. So when you cut out your frame, you'll end up with this piece left over. So from this, you could make a nice little stencil. I mean, yesterday, I cut out a little girl, and that could be used as a stencil where you, you know, put it over and just print out that image. So there are lots and lots of things you can use. You can use your fingers, pretty much anything will go. So for this one, I'm just going to pick up this little bit here just to show you kind of the, what you end up with when you do a secondary print. More often than not, you end up with something a little bit fainter, but you can make a nice little change within the image itself. Sometimes I personally find the secondary prints a little bit more interesting, because I think the nice thing that I like about printing as a painter is that there's you have a lot of control, but not as much as you do when you're painting. So everything comes out backwards and everything comes out just a little bit different than you think it is. If you've got a bit too much solvent, then it'll be a bit squishy. If you haven't, then it won't. So now this is the image that we've ended up with from this one. And I actually prefer the second image personally. So, you know, from the same print, you've ended up with, you know, some interesting, very different looking like image.
That looks absolutely incredible, Sikelela. We've had a question come through from Melanie, who asks, how can I keep my acrylic base from drying out?
Well, I think usually I would just put a lot of water. So make sure that it's quite thick with acrylic. It won't stay as long as oil, obviously. Also, a lot of brands, including Winsor & Newton, have like extenders, which allow you to extend the drying time. So those can be purchased. But I think if you use a decent amount, it should be, you know, for something like a monoprint, it should be fine. But if you want to do something a bit more extended, then I would use extender.
Just to let you know, Sikelela, we've had 15 minutes already.
Okay, then, thank you. So I'm gonna as I said earlier, I tend to pick like subject. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a very painterly one from Extraction, and I'm gonna use one of the drawings as a starting point. So I'm gonna roll this out again. Thank you very much for the 15-minute mark. That's quite funny. It's come quite fast. But I hope everyone's got to do a couple of, got to do a print.
We've had another question come through. Someone asking what the round object is that you're using to rub the paper.
It's basically it's like a little bit of plastic. It can be put on the end, so it's like a It's actually a proper printing tool. It comes in a kit. I'm not sure what the exact name is. I'll have to add that, but it's like it comes in a printing kit. So like if you get beginners printing kits, you can they just literally go on the end of where you'd put like the thing that you use for a lino cutter, and you can use them to thing, but you can also use like a plastic tub as long as it's flat on the bottom if you don't have them. But you can just buy, if you buy like a beginner's lino printing kit, then they come in that, because that's where I got mine ages ago. If you have a roller though, you will get a very similar effect if you have a proper, these printing rollers. So with this one, I'm going to play around with the idea of doing half covering it with, this brayer, and the other half with a paintbrush and some nice white space. Because the nice thing about printing is that by leaving it blank, you're basically, depending on the color of paper you have, but you're like leaving some nice white space. So you don't actually need to add white to. Oh, hello. Yeah, okay, yeah. You don't actually need to add white to the actual to the perspex or the acetate.
Oh, it looks like we might have just had a little technical glitch there, Sikelela. I think your phone camera has gone into portrait mode. Hopefully that won't affect what people can see too much.
Okay, do you want me to try and reset that? I can.
I think if you wouldn't mind, if we just have a moment to just reset it, that would be fantastic. Thanks so much, everyone. That looks brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna try and do a drawing. Let's say, where's the little drawing? Here we go. So by covering half of it, I'm getting like two different effects on the same bit of paper. Okay. So, okay. So this is a very loose idea of a swimmer.
So this ties in really nicely with your own personal work as an artist as well, Sikelela, because obviously your work is based a lot around kind of figures and people that are close to you and related to and mean a lot to you. Could you tell us a bit more about where you get your inspirations from?
Yeah, so as you said, I tend to work with friends and family and people who I'm very close to. My inspiration comes a lot from a mixture of other artists who I've enjoyed when I was younger. So I've always really enjoyed looking at figurative painting, and I've always kind of just wanted to make the people who are important to me and people who look like me a part of those conversations. So there are lots of artists who I admire, from Herman Anderson, Kerry James Marshall, to historical figures like Manet, and stuff like well, my last printing series was slow selfies. So I often look at like things that just happen in every day. For instance, I find Instagram quite difficult. I'm not the best techie person, and I did these sort of versions of slow selfies because I like to absorb information in a nice kind of slow old lady fashion. So that was kind of the inspiration for that work. But yeah, I like artists like Alice Neal, Jennifer Packer, who had a nice exhibition recently, and I look around a lot at other images and other ways of image making. I'm also a fan of a lot of photographers whose work I admire. So I'm going to put a frame around this one, and we will see what we can get from it. And I'm just going to place the A4 piece of paper gently on top of it and just wait for it to pick up. Yeah. I mean, literally, you could rub across it. You know how I'm using the tool? You can do like a roll and a rub across, just to make sure you pick up as much as you can. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be based in London. I feel like when I was younger, I got to see a lot of art for free. And that's really what helped make me want to be an artist and look at things. So yeah, so this is the figure that's come out from this one. And I always take a secondary print, in part because I like to change stuff. So in addition to taking stuff away, you can add stuff. You can add a little bit more, bit more in some areas and take a bit more in other areas. So I'm just going to add a little bit more here, maybe something in the distance. I don't know exactly what it would be. But I think that's a nice thing, like mono printing and monotyping differs so much from painting because it's not as high stakes. So, even if something doesn't go exactly how you want it to, you can go back in and change it relatively quickly, and they all look really good. Like, it doesn't really matter what you do, or at least I don't think it matters very much what you do. And they're relatively quick. Obviously, you can be way more elaborate if you want to. Like I've been to exhibitions and I've seen like Bill Jackal and Paul Arago's prints, monotypes, and I'm just like, they're very complicated. So yeah, so unlike the other one, it hasn't got as firm lines, but it's got this sort of like interesting, you end up with an added bit of space, so they're not the same, and that's why it's called mono, because you can only get one that's the exact same, but you end up with these nice additions and areas. So it's really good for reimagining an image that you're interested in. So I'm going to go on to the second method which I use, which is the addition of paint. I think I showed the example earlier down here. So here's the example from earlier where you just add paint. So you sort of treat the piece of acetate as some way that you can just paint like normal, like you normally would. So if you've got water-based, you would use some soapy water and a rag to just clean up after yourself. I'm going to use a bit of the eco-friendly Acetate and clean up here.
Just as a time check for yourself, Sikelela, we've got 20 minutes left of today's workshop in total.
Okay, that's great. It's good to know. So this is going to be the last thing. If you can just tell me in about 15 minutes, and then I can, talk about places you could take it or go on to do more. So yeah, so this is where you literally behave as if you're making a painting. So it doesn't need to be anything too exciting or elaborate. I was going to do something outside, but I think we will just stick with the lovely blue theme that we've got going on. And we will do yeah, we'll just do a figure standing.
So we've had a question come through from Maya, and Maya asks, Maya says, my paper keeps sticking and transferring to the acetate. Is there any reason why this might be happening?
No, it shouldn't stick and transfer. Maybe you've just put a bit too much paint on, or maybe you're leaving it on a bit longer. Maybe if you just try and roll and then literally remove immediately. What type of paint are you using? Sorry, actually.
So we'll just give Maya a moment to answer. She says that she's using acrylic paint.
Okay. Maybe just try and wet it a bit more. Yeah, if you try and wet the paint a bit more, and also try and remove it a lot quicker. But I'm not really sure why it would be doing that. Yeah, let us know how you get on with that.
I just want to take this moment and opportunity to say a big hello to everyone that's joining us today once again. Hi to everyone from Queen Mary's Lavender Ward who are taking part in today's workshop, and hi to all the ladies on Avocet Ward, and that's come through from Martin. Hello to lots of our participants that seem to be joining us from Canada today, and a big hello to Jane who has joined us from Bath.
I mean, also another alternative to, for Maya is, as much as I think it's nice if you have acetate and use like a shiny surface, you also can print paper to paper. So, you could try and see how the acrylic behaves if you, print on another piece of paper and try and see what you get from that. That's a lot better if you're doing line drawings though. So if you could try some line on there, maybe, to see if that works better for you. But
We've had a really helpful comment come through from Rachel. Rachel says the paper could be wetted, and also the acrylic dries out too quickly. So you could use a wetting agent or spray water onto the acetate. Thanks so much for that tip, Rachel.
yeah. Yes, actually, sorry, yes, wet paper is a great way of making sure that you get every single bit of detail as well. Yeah.
This is a really gorgeous, mesmerizing process to be watching from the other side. And I just want to remind everyone that if you're taking part in today's workshop and creating some artworks, we'd absolutely love to see them. You can upload those to our online gallery at hospital-rooms.com.
Yeah. And with acrylic, when you're doing the additioning, you might want to, yeah, definitely keep adding water. I keep going to my, I'm not sure whether it's on screen. Oh yeah, I keep going to my zest it just to keep everything kind of flowing and moving. Okay, so this is very quick slapdash. As I said, you can go around in circles with your hands or the plastic tool that I have. Just make sure you get into every single corner. It's kind of come up kind of sticky. Probably used a bit too much white spirit on there when you end up with sort of a sticky look. Yeah, I think you're right. It is quite meditative, really.
Do you find that you also find it quite a meditative, relaxing process when you're working on your larger pieces and paintings as well?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think that there's something nice about the, mono typing in the sense that it's not, but yeah, they're all beautifully meditative for me anyway. But there's something nice about like the low stakes of this or relative low stakes of it. You can kind of start again within quite a quick period of time. But yeah, that's probably also why I like to use oil paint, because I like to think very slowly.
And just to give you a time check today, Sikelela, as well as everyone that's joining us, we've got about 10 minutes left of today's workshop.
Okay, right, that's fine then. I will. Yep. So I'm just gonna do this as my last one. Decided this would be more interesting if maybe you couldn't see the shorts and it was just the silhouette. So this is the secondary print. I'm gonna clean this up. For cleaning up, as I said, depending on what material you're using, you can just wipe it away, which is very convenient. But I was also going to say, like, I make mine, and I really enjoy painting, so I make paintings. However, The good thing about mono printing, monotyping is that it's not prohibitive. As I said earlier, you know, you could just simply make a stencil, you know, over the, you know, the blue that you put on. You can make a stencil and just and come up with something quite nice without having to do lots of drawing or any sort of painting, if that's not of interest to you. And they're quite nice because when you've got a beautiful frame on it, it can look like kind of ready to, you know, go somewhere else. That's, oh, not quite come up. Just try on this side. A bit more paint underneath. I'm going to cheat and use the paintbrush. Are we coming up to the last 5 or?
We are coming up to the last 5 minutes of the workshop.
Okay. Just, oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so you can end up with just using stencils and bits of paper and bits of leaves and things like that. So literally, you know, you can literally shove some leaf in here and just go over it. And, you know, simply rub down on it. So it's not like, you know, there's lots and lots of things that you can do with it. Obviously, I've spoken about the things that I do that help my practice. Because I like to make paintings, but I think that it's something that people should play around with and see how it works best for you. Okay. Yeah, so I hope people will, you know, use this method as like a starting point. One of the things that's also quite good is if you've got 2 prints, and even if you're not 100% happy with it, it's very easy to go back into it and literally just paint. You know, you can paint, draw, and just change it any way you want. It's a really good way to like get a base on, and you can start like adding finer lines or extra details, and you can make something really brilliant quite fast. Add more details and things like that. So like I often like to do a mono print and then work back into it. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for such a wonderful workshop today, Sikelela. The techniques that you've shown us are going to produce such kind of beautiful works. And I would really encourage everyone, if you've got extra time this afternoon or you're coming back to the recorded version of the workshop, to keep going with your works and experiment and lay the techniques and utilize colour and find new tools to make marks with. And a reminder that we'd absolutely love to see them. So please do upload those to our online gallery. A huge thank you to Sikelela on behalf of Hospital Rooms for such a fun workshop today. Thanks to everyone that's let us know where you've been joining us from, and thanks to everyone that submitted a question or a comment. It's always so brilliant to have you all with us live. If you're still here with us, I'd like to share the story of Hospital Rooms and how the workshop today has come about. So we are a London-based arts and mental health charity, and we transform inpatient mental health units with extraordinary art. We began the Digital Art School in response to COVID-19 lockdowns when our in-person work in mental health units was put on hold. It's been hugely important for us to build a community where we can join together globally and feel part of something special, impacting our creative well-being in a positive way. And I know we've had lots of wonderful participants joining us from Canada today. You can find the library of our past projects and all of the previous Digital Art School workshops on our YouTube channel, where you'll find a variety of original and imaginative classes with world-leading artists. From big cat drawing to typography design, geotachy printing, and so many more in between. Please do have a look and subscribe to our channel. We also have a Digital Art School newsletter, which keeps you informed of upcoming workshops, the materials you'll need for them, along with any relevant downloads and links to last week's video if you missed it, or you just like a recap. You can sign up for that at hospital-rooms.com. As we said previously today, we absolutely love when you share your artworks with us by uploading to our online gallery. You can do so anonymously, or you can let us know your name and where you are. If you've created some monoprints today, either joining us live or watching back on demand, we'd really love to see them. We'll be back next week on Thursday at 2 p.m. for another free workshop. This time it'll be gestural painting with Hannah Shin, who'll be joining us live from South Korea. From myself and everyone on the Hospital Rooms team, thank you all so much again for joining us today. Another big thank you to our wonderful artist, Sikelela Owen, for leading today's excellent workshop. And thank you again to our friends at Anthropology EU for their continual support.